Paul, you have an opening devotion for us.
I did.
Now, Paul showed up on the 12th, ready to go, and we finally figured out that that's the 12th. He showed up a month early.
Yeah, that was December 12th. I came in and I looked around the meeting room. I'm like,
And I gave you a strange look going.
yeah. But you panicked too because you're like, is this the right night?
Did I mess up?
Last week or 2 weeks ago when I volunteered for this, I sat on it for a couple of days and thought about it. And as it got closer, I started to panic. So, of course, number one, I called Brandon first. Number two, it was interesting because I Googled it, how to write a devotional. And it was kind of interesting because between the time that I had Googled it and the time that Brandon called me back, I got a phone call from a very, very special friend, and it was really ironic because I was thinking about the devotional, and then when I told her we hadn't talked to each other, Gil actually knows her, Cynthia.
Oh, Cynthia, yeah.
So very special lady in my life, and so it just was kind of the timing of her calling me that she was thinking about me, and I had been thinking about her. And when I talked about the mission trip, she was really excited about it for me, because she said that it'll be one of those things that it's a lifetime experience, that you'll take the memories forever. And so the Google portion of it was, if anybody, you said you're going to be writing one? Number one, be prayerful.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm exempt. I never
you're
have to
exempt?
give-
Oh, I thought you said you're pushing off as long as you had. It says pick one topic. It said keep it short. It said know your audience, check your facts, inspire action, and be yourself. I'm keeping it. The one topic is that with this person, she said something to me that was kind of interesting. She says that when you get there, you really don't have to say anything to anybody, because they're going to see the compassion in your eyes, the fact that you are there standing in Kenya with them. And I thought that was something that was really, really inspiring to me. And she said that they will see Jesus Christ in your eyes. So I thought it was something that I would like to share. I went back and also Googled a few things about compassion and some Bible verses. And some of the ones that I thought were kind of neat is that every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord your God that he has given you. And I think as we look around the room, all of us here are blessed because we have the financial ability to go ahead and make this trip ourselves. And so we've been blessed with that. And so I kind of think it to that way that we're able to do that. And then there's also be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. And as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God, varied grace. And then one more. All of you have unity in mind, sympathy, brotherly love, a tender heart, and a humble mind.
Very much. You really, I had the privilege of the last thing that we did when we were together last time was you began to write a covenant of some things that you wanted to see happen. And I spent a little time organizing those. I haven't put it in final form for you, but they largely fell into two categories. One, you go as a team, and it talked about the words of compassion for each other, care, all of those qualities of you go as a team, you become a team as you're there, and a whole list of things that are related to teaming, taking care of each other, laughing together, respectful and sensitive, staying together, being patient, allow people to process their experience, being flexible, adaptable, changing, respecting leaders, and leaders recognizing we don't know everything. All of those things that focus around teaming. And the other, and almost an equal number that talked about the purpose for going is we're going on a mission to share the love of God that talks about keeping the main thing, praying together, studying, sharing the good news and being ready to do that, all sorts of kinds of things. And I'll eventually put that in some kind of form, but just kind of some great reminders of some things that you go together as. Tonight's lesson is a pretty quick one. We're not going to spend as much time with it. We can do it rather quickly. But it is probably useful for us to spend a little bit of time on some of the basics of language that you need to know. That's helpful of knowing. You all know Jambo.
Right.
It just made me think of Vicar John State.
Which is what happened. Habarigani, and your answer would be very You know, Swahili is such an interesting language that they put all sorts of consonants together that we never put back to back. And they are, to our ears, my trip there halfway through, I thought they were saying Missouri-san. You know, the way it said so quickly that it's really hard to distinguish, but it's Missouri-san. And it's said very, very quickly. And sana means very. Thank you. Asante. A-S-A-N-T-E. Asante. And if you want to say thank you very much, it would be asante
Son.
sana. Asante sana. So if somebody compliments you, your answer is? Asante, or asante sana. Just some simple little things to remember. This is a useful phrase, probably could be wafahamu Kiingereza, and you do it with a rising inflection. Do you understand English?
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
But then you gotta know the answer to it. Yes or no.
What they say.
And you can ask them, wafahamu Kiingereza, and they're going to say yay or nay. Yay or nay. So, and just some simple little things, but asante, another one that's useful to know. Yes.
Are you going to be distributing this cheat sheet for us?
Yeah, I'll prepare a cheat sheet and send it out. Tafadali, please. Tafadali. But Jambo and Asante, you know those and you can get by. Jambo and Asante. And so a little bit, and wafahamu Kiingereza.
Yeah. Or you can ask them, do you speak English? If they do, they'll.
If they do.
Thank you, Paul.
And a significant for if they're educated.
That's the American culture way.
We're gonna.
Get this blank
And it gets interesting to hear their English. They speak the King's English with an African rhythm and dialect, or rhythm and accent to it. So it's really it takes a little getting used to, but within a day you're pretty accustomed to.
You'll find that they will speak English with you in most cases, many cases, but Swahili with each other. Yeah, so it's interesting.
You miss out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And just nod and smile and laugh. Get you a long,
You
long.
assume what everything you're saying is good.
And they really do appreciate you trying to respond in their language. The simple things you can learn are deeply appreciated, and it's a sign that you've valued them. So I learned a few things on that. Reading, what have you noted in your reading? Who has plowed through African Friends and Money Matters? They get 1,000 ways to say the same thing over and over. What are your conclusions about African Friends and Money Matters? What are you noting about it?
Completely opposite to what we would think would be the responsible thing to do, and that they put the immediate needs first and forego what the consequences can be, because then it sounds like it's always a series of emergencies.
But that is the responsible thing
that's
for them, for their culture. because their existence is so tenuous that they can't plan for what happens next month. They have to plan what's happening right now. And if my brother has a problem and I can help, then I have to do it. And hopefully he can help me or someone else can when I have a problem.
When you think of it as a land of scarcity, that there simply is not enough to go around, it becomes the cultural response. It's the only way the whole group can survive. But it is certainly foreign to the way that we think. What it does, though, is it makes it difficult for people to accumulate capital to do big things, because the immediate need comes in. And the way you'll see them accumulating capital will be, they'll build their house in stages. They may get the walls up this high, and then this high, and this high, because my brother may need it before. So but it certainly turns upside down the way we think about it. If you look at some of our people who live in great poverty in this country, they operate often in the same, very similar in terms, and we struggle to comprehend it, but you know, you're going to have a utility bill come due next, you know, if you help out here, you're not going to have that for next week when you need it.
In some of the trips I remember reading, I don't know which book, but it says that they purposely did that sometimes. They would work on a little bit of their house, and they didn't want to finish it to make it look like they had a whole bunch of money. And you do see that. I see that when I go northeast.
So,
It also, I got the impression that currency started to disrupt that system.
excuse me?
Currency, introduction of currency. Because when all you have is commodities to share, and all of a sudden you have money, and you know.
Commodities are short-lived usually.
Yeah. Which would you rather eat, a dollar bill or a loaf of bread?
So it's an interesting, you may end up skimming through it, it's worth it, but it helps us recognize we're going to a land that has successfully survived in spite of all of the challenges. I remember flying home, I was struck by looking at American agriculture from the air as opposed to African agriculture and going, we're landing plenty. You know, we're not having to spend all of our times and resources as individuals trying to eke out enough food to survive. And so, toxic charity, the missions, what are you catching from those readings? What struck you in that?
A couple of things struck me, and I just finished that one. First off, it made me step back and look at mission efforts, ours as well as others that I hold. I also thought, along the same vein, really didn't think that applied that much to the medical mission.
Probably not.
But some of the other types of missions, like, well, one of the instances in the book was where he was talking to, I think it was in Nicaragua, the author was talking about that. He was talking to a friend of his from Nicaragua, and the friend said, I really hate it when the missionaries come up here because to do work like, you know, renovation work and things like that, because it said, you know, here's our people are staying out here waiting to see if there's a job for them, and here are all these volunteers and they're working, and so it makes beggars out of the people.
And Shawan, our missionary, is very, very in tune to that whatever we do, we need to be careful that we're not undercutting local economy, and folks who are living depends on us by us either flooding the market with inexpensive products that we give away to, and then what it talks about also is us coming as partner, come alongside and say, what things can we do to be helpful to you in your ministry to the community? You know, and that's really I am glad to see that we've moved away from the old colonial model of missions, that somehow the Western world knows how to do things for you and direct your ministry, but to simply say, how can we partner and what kinds of things can we do with you that can be very, very helpful to you in your ministry.
Raises a question I have. Are we taking medical supplies or are we buying them?
We typically buy them in.
But I believe there's some possibility as a result of the meeting several days ago, that we'll be taking some, but in many cases, like some of the cuffs and that kind of stuff, the thermometers, digital
You can't
thermometers.
get there.
Right, but in many cases, we'll be buying them there.
For example, our philosophy is to buy local medicines rather than to stockpile medicines and carry them with them. What happens if you take medicines is potentially you may have to pay a bribe. You may have not spent anything that may have been given to you, but you may have to pay a bribe to get them across the border, and then you're funneling the money into their underground economy rather than legitimate economy. So Shawan really likes for us to come with very little of that and then to buy what's there, and then that turns over into the local economy.
Well, the other issue with that too, Jim, is that if we take medicines, all their medicines are not the same as our medicines. If we take things and we have a small supply to give out, and then when that's gone, they can't get any more of it.
Right.
You know, their drugs are not the same as our drugs. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't.
My father was a doctor, and my mother would have a big box this big of medical things in the car. And she wanted to say, take whatever you...
And there may be a few
Okay.
things that for example, the last team took a microscope that they left there. So it was bought by the team and used in the clinic and left behind. And
So maybe-
there are a few of those kinds of things. And there are some other things I think the medical group will be
Can you
talking
bring
about.
it in and we
I'll
can look at it?
Look to see what is usable. I don't know what is,
Yeah,
but I'll bring it
bring it
in.
maybe to the next
Next
meeting, because
meeting.
Jeff will be here and Twilla,
Yeah,
Paula.
yeah.
But again, what we don't want to do is to undercut the ministry that's occurring there, but walk alongside people. And that's part of the reason, and then the other things are the cultural differences around money, around what's valuable, those kinds of things. One of the things, and we'll spend a significant portion of time next time talking about culture, but it's useful to note, is that there is among East Africans a respect for authority. And there is a pecking order of authority. So that when we did our evaluation on the last day, there was a very definite order. As the group was gathering, the higher in authority you are, once you spoke, that person spoke, no one would publicly disagree with him on anything. And that would be the pastors would have been the last to speak. Once the pastor spoke, you might nod and agree and go, yes, 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 and go out the door and go, no, no,
No
no.
way.
No way. You'd just be very polite, you'd listen, you'd agree with everything they do, and so their pattern would be, for example, in our evaluation, they started with what they called the youth. Now, simply youth meant unmarried. Now, some of those youth were in their 35, approaching 40, but they were unmarried. That was the first group that spoke. Then the women. Then the men. Then our missionary team, and then lastly, the pastors. There is a respect for authority, and one that we used to see in this culture an awful lot in an earlier time. The other thing that's very interesting is that while there's a very politeness about it, you may have people ask you for your help. We admire directness. If Don were to ask me a question, can I do this? And I'd say, Don, no, I can't. And Don would understand that and say, okay. In that culture, you can't directly say no. That's offensive. You can't, if somebody's saying, can you help me with this today? I've got some money. You can't say no. What you have to do is say, Mary, this is so important, let's talk about this tomorrow, when I can give it the proper thought that it requires. You simply have to have that ability to delay, to say no directly. Very, very offensive.
Even as in things as simple as if we were at a resort and you would ask for pineapple juice. I'm making this up, and you would think they were going to get pineapple juice, and they never came back. And so you'd kind of corner them and say, "Where's the pineapple juice?" And they kind of look at you. "Do you have pineapple juice?" "No, we have." And then they would say, but they just want to say no.
It's impolite to say no directly. So it's, I kind of like, who was in a sorority or fraternity here? It would be like your fraternity brother coming and asking you a question, and you say, my fraternity brother, but I'm going to tell him no, but I can't tell him no directly. I'm going to have to find a polite way of not making him lose face with the group by my simply saying, you got to be kidding me. You can't do that. They will delay, and you have to learn how to do that. You ready to do some looking?
Sure.
Section 4. What page is this on?
27.
Hi, I'm Sandy Miller, and you are going on a trip of a lifetime. The things you see and the experiences you have will be extraordinary. As it says in the Bible, you'll want to shout it from the mountaintops. In this session, you'll learn how to effectively tell the story of your trip. We'll talk about the value of sharing and the importance of communication security. We'll also discuss things to do before you go and how to gather information while on your trip. This includes taking photographs, bringing home artifacts, and writing down your experiences. As a short-term missionary, you are a critical link between the overseas mission field and those at home. You'll want to send a newsletter or brochure and give a presentation about your trip to the groups and individuals who supported the team through prayers and money. This is a great way to say thanks. And by telling your story, you're inviting others to become involved in mission work. It could be through prayer, money, support for a future trip you might be planning, or going on a trip themselves.
This is what's probably most valuable in this lesson.
Communication security is an important topic. In some countries, missionary work is frowned upon. We can only be in these countries for humanitarian or educational reasons. Your team leader knows what applies to you in terms of communication security for your trip. However, even if you aren't traveling to a country where communication security is an issue, it's still important to know this information. For example, missionaries serving in Siberia worked with an Iraqi Kurd, a former Muslim who became a Christian. This was not acceptable to his family, and he was forced to leave Iraq. The missionaries wrote about him, his conversion, where he was, and what he was doing. Now, while the missionaries were simply telling a happy story, they were in reality putting the man's life in danger when this information was posted to a website. The man had to leave the mission before his family could locate him. Now, in the end, he was safe in another country. However, it was a situation that could have been avoided. Modern communication has made the world a small place, so don't assume anything you post to the web will only be read by the intended audience. Also, in countries where security is an issue, The government may also open letters and listen to phone calls. Simply be wise about your language, and remember, what you do affects not just you, but those serving there permanently, and possibly the national church. So be sure to review the security guidelines you receive. Before you go, decide who should take on the various responsibilities to gather the information that you'll need when you get back. And it's especially important to assign one person the role of editor. This person gathers information from the team and creates the final newsletter, brochure, or presentation. He or she needs to be prepared to get some specific information on the trip, such as the names of those at the mission. While the editor is responsible for the final production, the whole team can take part in developing material. Also, since you'll want to do your presentations as soon as possible after your return, get on your group's calendars before you go. You'll also need to take on the responsibility to commit to these dates. A picture's worth 1,000 words. You'll want plenty of photographs and, if possible, video to tell your story. But before you start, find out the local etiquette for taking photos. You never want to offend anyone or make them uncomfortable. When you first arrive is the best time to start taking photographs, gathering items to bring back, and recording thoughts and stories about your experience. You're not there very long. Before you know it, you'll be stepping on the plane to go home, and you don't want to be scrambling at the last minute. Another reason to start right away is everything is new and fascinating when you first arrive, but may start to seem ordinary in the last few days of your trip. Get a balance of photos with the team at work and ones focusing on the nationals. Avoid too many posed group shots. Have photos of the ministry, the church, fellowship, worship services, and photos that help explain the culture and environment. Get pictures of people doing things, houses, buses, and local scenery. Your student manual has tips on taking good photographs. Even if you're a savvy photographer, it's worthwhile to take a look at these tips.
Paul, anything we need to alert this team around the issue of security and communications? We're going to an area that has many Muslims. I did not, but there seems to be, everywhere we went, an openness to the interaction of Christians and Muslims.
Yes.
And there is not, in the area we're going to, the same kind of animosity when a Muslim converts to Christianity. I know we were visiting in villages where the husband was Muslim and the wife was Christian. And he talked openly about, she keeps wanting me to convert. All sorts of those kinds of things. But we do need to be careful about the information we post on the internet.
Definitely. And there won't be a whole lot of opportunity to do that. The internet that we have will be pretty weak. Pastor Trump has some access to that. And I would just say, you know, just post very general stuff on there, nothing specific. And kind of always check with Shara, who will be there. If Catherine is with us, check with Catherine. Pastor Trump is with us, check with him. And take the lead, if you're when you're out making the visits, take the lead of either the evangelist that would be leading us, or hopefully the Nuru, Lutheran Ministry. Let them take the lead, and don't do anything, don't take any initiative until they pass it to you. And they'll know when or when not to do that. But it'll come pretty natural. There's nothing to really feel uptight about, to feel anxious about. You can't help but feeling a little anxious, but just kind of, in a sense, go with the flow, and just kind of, if you're with any of the Kenyans, let them take the lead until they pass it off to you. Whatever the situation is, just always let them
They'll guide you through it.
Defer to them, always. Always just kind of passively defer to them and just kind of let it happen, and they'll bring you on.
Recognizing they may call on you, say,
That's right.
Pastor.
Yeah, they very well.
One sticky thing I remember in the last medical mission was this kid, he basically cut his thumb off. It was just dangling, you know. And we told him what to do about it and everything. And it wasn't done. And so we came back the next day and the thumb was black. So it was,
Evil to.
well, if I would have been there, I could have.
Yes, that's true.
And so it was looking serious, you know. So we had to go to our higher powers, you know. Jeff was there, and Ben, my interpreter, Catherine, who knew Swahili. So we wound up going to his uncle. Well, his uncle didn't want to pay $250 to take him to the clinic in a car ride. And he refused that maybe twice. So finally, since Catherine could speak Swahili, she talked to him and she said, if you don't get your nephew to the clinic, you're going to have to go before the tribal chief. And he went along with it then.
Yeah.
She knew what to do.
She knew exactly
what
the thing to do.
Tribal
Yeah.
chief. No.
Did you bring your picture with you tonight?
Yeah.
You were supposed to have some homework. You know, pictures tell a story, and that's part of what you need to be ready. So we're going to give you just a brief time to tell about the trip in the picture and why it's meaningful to you. And that's really a large part of your task will be to come back and tell your story about this. So who wants to go first? Who's got a picture to share?
I'll go.
Okay.
This picture, I don't know if, well, I can pass it around if anybody wants to see it closer. This is from April of this year, and my wife and I were on a cruise. And we went, I call it the Drug Runners cruise. We went to Colombia, Panama, that sort of thing. But we were on the Holland America ship. All of the service staff on Holland America ship are Indonesian. Now, as many of you know, Indonesia is 85% Muslim. This gentleman, he was our chief dining room steward, this smiling, wonderful smiling person, and they're all wonderful people, everybody that we've ever met. His name is Henrik. Henrik, in just the course of discussion, he had asked me about traveling, and did we travel much? And I said, well, not a lot, but we like to when we could, and that sort of thing. And I said, what I was really hoping to do was go on a mission trip. And his face just lit up. Henrik is an Indonesian Christian.
Oh,
And we formed a tremendous relationship on the ship there, and talked about, and he led a small, very small group of Christian Indonesian crewmen on board this ship, and the Holland American Line gives them a room to meet together, and it was very moving. He talked about the problems with their families because so much of their families were Muslim and they're Christian. He said a lot of times they would get together and just talk and cry, about their situations. And I was so moved, by this gentleman. And it was just a fantastic experience to speak with him. He wanted me to come meet with him but they don't allow passengers in the crew spaces, so I wasn't allowed to go and meet with them. I would have loved
to have
done that.
Neat.
Just,
perfect picture.
You went on a vacation and got a lot more.
I got a lot more. And the last night, we hugged, he cried. But it was just a wonderful experience.
Thank you for sharing the picture, though I do want to warn you to one thing. When you take pictures on this trip, we ask you to turn the dates off so that it doesn't it makes it a timeless photo in our storytelling.
That's, obviously Jan took that picture, but, and I didn't even know I was in it, that's hence my
But
facial
you need to
expression.
turn your time and date stamps off when you take pictures.
And all
For your-
cameras have that function.
I'm not even aware, because I didn't even know I've had one and I've never seen on any of my photos, so I'm not gonna go look for it.
You're not gonna, all you could do is turn it on. Who's next? Who's got a picture?
I'll
to
go
share?
next. I forgot a real picture. This is Marvin. Met Marvin on our last trip to Kenya. Marvin is an extremely modest man. I think Marvin was 70 or 71. Was up there on the roof all day long with all the young guys. Even though he was hurting, he didn't say anything to them. I knew about it later when we got back. But he had been on a Peace Corps volunteer in the South Pacific. He'd spent over a year out there. Probably felt that was a crowning achievement of his life. He was just, all he wanted to do was serve. That was his goal in life, was to serve. And he just gave me a new perspective on living a Christian life.
Yeah, he really became very engaged with our team. He became part of it. It was amazing.
A little short for me, but other than that.
Who's next?
He was 73.
Mm.
Young guy.
Compared to Seth, yeah.
Wow. Wow, I'm sold with how long.
Who's next?
He rubs off on
He's
you.
either brave or foolish.
I'll
I
be
forgot
next.
to bring I forgot to bring a picture,
I'll be
but if
next.
I was to bring a picture, I brought a picture of my daughter on vacation. Because spending time with her to me is so important as she's grown up. Even like 2 weekends ago, Saturday, we went to the Talon Falls 5K zombie fun run. And we had a great time because like partway through it, she actually even grabbed my hand and held my hand for a while. Of course, I hurt my knee doing it, but so it was just nice to spend time.
Interesting, for those of you who have children, they really appreciate the Kenyan coins. The bills mean nothing to them, but they love the coins, and to pass them around to their friends and let everybody look at them. Just a thought.
Just like showing off the money, huh? The
Oh,
coins.
yeah.
This was a little mini vacation, a weekend, and we're looking at cheetahs at the St. Louis Zoo, but it tells the story of, it wasn't just going to the zoo, it was going with my youngest grandchild, and he's got his arm around me. So it told a story for me of, it's not just the places we go, which can be exciting, but the folks we share it with.
This is Egypt. My mother's bucket list is something we've been checking off over the years. For those of you who know her, she's 90 years old. This picture was taken when she was 85. And so we took her to Greece and then Egypt on this trip. So you're right, it's the people that you share it with that's so awesome. And so it's our loving pleasure to check off her list. And this is Alaska. We took her 2 years later on an Alaskan Adirondacks trip.
So she's
She's
87
in
now?
the sled.
87?
87.
Neat.
You got a cold, Seth.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
There you go, Rod.
Yeah.
Who's next with their picture?
Okay. Can we guess who it is or what?
It's this lady.
It's her daughter. It's her daughter, yeah. It was a sailboat off of Key West. And it was after a year of very, very hard work, it was some reward for us to go spend some time together, and it was just, I mean, we're on a sailboat off of Key West. I mean,
Life would be much better.
I mean, really, it was phenomenal, so.
I'm ready. I have 3 pictures. My son and his girlfriend were living in Peru for 3.5 years. She went there as a Peace Corps volunteer, and he taught in a Catholic university. He taught English. It was a Opus Dei school. It was very strict. And I went over there to see them more than once when they were there. This was at Machu Picchu, and so was this. These are like my favorite people in the whole world. And this was going over the equator when we went to the Galapagos. We would go back and forth, and they were like, you know, he was like a pirate, and they were pirates and stuff. And so Peru is very beautiful. Did some really good climbing up there. It's been pushing me up. Machu Picchu is it's no walk in the park.
No.
It's not.
For those of you who hadn't thought about it, you will be going south of the equator on the strip.
Oh, well,
Barely south.
Blood south.
But south. Who's got a picture to share?
My picture is a picture of 4 couples, about a 25, 26, can't remember how many years, reunion at Estes Park. We have access to a wonderful mountain cabin. After I had left the parish in Houston, a few months later, they called Gene and I, and they said, hey, we want to rendezvous with you guys up in this cabin. And there were 8 adults and 10 kids. And we left that time, all still friends at the end of all that. And it was a great, great time. And Dennis and Karen Wishman and the Shorts were caravanning back to Texas a couple of years ago, and in the process of traveling back, we came up with this reunion idea. So 4 couples back without kids.
That's cool. Oh, you're going to have it again without kids.
So we did it again, and it was a great, great time. And it was just brings back a lot of good memories for actually many years sometimes. So kind of neat to be able to still be friends with people back in other parishes.
John?
I have 2. First is my son, 2 summers ago at Disney. If you know my son, that's him. Just this inquisitive little, I just love that picture because it's him trying to figure out how this car at Disney stays on the track. And he's just a little engineer, and so he loves to analyze all of those things. So it's fun to do that. The girls left us during that part of the trip, so it's just he and I. But this is potentially my new favorite picture ever. So I'll show it to you here in a second. This I just took in Guatemala. 4 days ago, 5 days ago. And I can pass it around, but
Yeah, pass it around.
as soon as I walked up, and we were in this little village up in the high mountains. In fact, it was where we shot the video that we showed on Sunday. But right when you walked in, there were houses in like a U-shaped type thing. And as soon as I walked up, I saw this hole in the wall. There were holes all over the wall, but for whatever reason, that one caught my attention.
It looks like a heart.
It's shaped like a heart, yeah. And so I was going to take a picture just of the heart, and then this little kid like stuck his face in the picture, and so I took it. And I don't know, I think it's just a cool picture. So, take a look if you care, but I just think it's cool.
You know, those pictures, you need to document this trip well to tell the story.
When do you want to pass this?
Just pass that around. And I brought one from the most recent trip. This is also, that's the medical mission trip, isn't
Right.
it? The previous.
Yes.
So you can take, part of what you want to do is, we will be sharing photographs back and forth. While you're looking at that, let's just talk about some pictures. Page 29. The story to tell. You need to develop a photographer's eye of what to take. What's interesting? What's compelling? What tells the story? Some choices there. Local shopping, which do you do? A or B? A. Always pick the teaching. Teacher in front of the room, teacher one-on-one.
One-on-one.
One-on-one. Show them impacting the lives of teachers. Construction. Wide angle or close-up of people working?
Close-up.
Close-up of the folks working. Worship.
Of their
Unique
backs.
customer object. What?
Of their backs. Sorry.
That's like his.
Unique custom or choir and robes?
Unique
You do the
customs.
unique. National workers, pastor posed in front of a wall or working at his desk?
Looking at it.
The country's culture. Random shots or photos you take after checking?
After checking.
After checking. And just keep that in mind. Some things, if you turn to page 31, there's some great suggestions.
Paul had an interesting comment the other day, I think it was in Kenya, where you wanted to take a picture of a woman, and you almost took it and decided instead to ask her, and you gave her $1 and she was happy. But I'm sorry.
Sorry, we were in the city, fixing Shawan's air conditioning in his car on our first trip. And we were just kind of sitting there, kind of waiting on to get some stuff done. And I just noticed this lady doing something, selling something really unique, kind of specialized activity around her. And I just kind of wanted to take it. And I kind of held the camera up and I said, and she went like this, you know, so I gave her $1 and she was okay with it. But if I'd have taken it, I almost got the impression she'd have been pretty offended. She would have taken offense.
That was okay.
So,
The-
yeah.
It was okay to take.
What we found in the villages, the remote villages where we're going, is you ask kids if they can take the picture, and then they all want to look at
Oh,
your
right.
camera and see
Yeah.
themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
you
They
take a
love
picture,
that.
and then you've got 30 looking at it, laughing and having a great time, and doing those kinds of things.
If
Some
any of you
things-
have that cameras with the super zooms on them, 20x zoom, whatever, if you get away from people and zoom in on them, and you're quick about it, they're much less likely to even know that you're doing it.
Page 31 offers some suggestions. Turn off the date and time. Secondly, you are
Why
going to
is
be,
that? Why do you turn it off?
so that there's a timelessness to the story you
They
tell.
don't know if your photo is old. So,
You know, we could be using these photos for a long time, and you want to tell the story rather than necessarily the date. The other thing to remember, in Africa, even though it may be bright sunlight, and you can take pictures of your son, dark skin, you often need flash photography to get a face and the detail. We were taking kids' photos at Faraja, and I used about half of mine with and half without, and it was bright sunshine. We were in the shade, but it was very bright. The pictures with flash were much better about catching kids' expression, the detail in their face. Recognize that particularly as you're taking dark skin, looking for detail. The other thing that you'll need to debate is, I'm assuming most people are using digital photography. The higher resolution, the more memory it takes. And so there's a balance between using up all your memory, but higher resolution pictures are often much more usable when you come back for presentations like these.
As that's my business, the cards are dirt cheap. I don't know how else to say it. You can buy a 32 gigabyte card for $30 for your camera. And
You mean over there?
no, before you leave here.
Oh, okay.
And so, or buy a couple of 16s, whatever. you would be surprised if you start shooting, you can burn up a lot of real estate. And if you have specific questions, I can answer those one-on-one based on specific cameras.
But
Are we sharing the pictures?
and when we get
afterward?
back, we will share. We'll give them all to Lane and then make them accessible to everyone. But the more pixels you use, the more memory, but the better the resolution of the picture. And the memory cards are inexpensive. Make sure you take enough. You probably won't have any opportunity to download pictures while you're there to another storage device.
Unless you haul your computer with you, which I think would be a waste of energy generally.
Yeah.
Let's do a little more looking at some video.
Bring back a piece of the country with you. Small objects and artifacts help when you talk about the country's culture. The team should plan a small budget for this, but the best items are simple and inexpensive. Get items you can smell, touch, hear, or taste. Choose things that are sturdy and won't break if handled by a lot of people. You'll be passing them around a room and maybe leaving them for display. Coins, postcards, brochures, or other small trinkets can reflect the country's culture. One missionary brought back a cereal box showing Tony the Tiger saying, "They're great," in Japanese. Gather items just to be used for presentations, and don't use personal souvenirs because they might get broken. Another source of information for your communications when you return is your
Absolutely
journal.
essential.
You'll want to talk about growth you've experienced and when you've had opportunities to share your faith, along with the spiritual and emotional aspects of your trip. Write about the physical, food, dress, and where you stayed. Document what you did on a day-to-day basis. When you get back, you can use the highlights for a newsletter or presentation. With upfront planning and preparation, your communications can be effective and engaging. Telling people about your trip with enthusiasm feeds energy back into the church. And as you share the enthusiasm about your experience, you're taking the next step in your own journey. Thanks for your participation and have a great trip.
In terms of bringing things back, they need to fit in your suitcases.
We had a little bit of shuffling going on in the last few minutes before we got back on the bus.
Other things we need to talk about tonight. Stay at the reading. We next meet, I forgot to ask, who would be willing to do a devotion for us who's not done one yet next Monday when we meet? Next Monday, we've got a couple more. Next Monday, we meet, we will be inviting some local Kenyans to join us if they're able to. They live on East African time though, so.
You told them 5:30?
We'll be talking about cultural differences, focusing.
What time will be meeting downstairs?
Okay, downstairs next week. December 12th is, have we got a confirmation from Shawan on that?
Nothing has changed. It looks like it's going to be December 11th and 12th. Is that
12th and 13th, was it?
12th and 13th? Right. We don't have the details of any.
12th is a Thursday. We're assuming he's not going to be that Friday.
He's spending the night. He is spending Thursday night with the Steers, John
Okay.
Pat Steer.
Okay. So keep that December 12th open, a great
Yeah.
opportunity for us to meet.
I'm
with you.
assuming that afternoon slash evening type thing on the 12th.
We have not heard anything from Dr. B, so if we don't hear anything by Monday, you may, now he met with the team about a month before they
Yeah, it may not
left,
happen until next year, until January.
till January.
But you can get your hepatitis shot, your polio boosters often. You call the local
Health
county
Department,
County Health.
Linden Street, they give those shots. I went in, I finally got my third hepatitis shot, and
Oh, look at that.
there's no time limit on that one apparently. And a flu shot and was done in less than 5 minutes. It took me longer to fill out the paperwork than it did to get the shot, so that's one of the options that you have on that. We still have time to get the yellow fever. Why don't we wait and see if we hear from him again? Because if he's able to do that, that was very, very valuable for the previous team.
We may need to see if Michelle Tans has any connection to find him.
Okay.
And just make sure that, because we've had no reply. She did talk to.
She talked to him once and he said, "I don't have time to talk."
That's right, yeah. So he is around,
Yes.
evidently.
Down at Ferguson Clinic, Stanley Jones is the nearest yellow fever.
Yes.
Yes, in Sykeston.
That's where I got mine.
That's where I got mine.
The,
But that cost you, I guess we pay Dr. B though too, don't we?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was a pretty good size check.
Yeah.
One of the things that you may want to consider, some of us that did it before we went last time, was meningitis. It is not prevalent where we are, but it is north of Nairobi, and of course we will be passing through Nairobi. So many of us chose to get that shot. I don't know, it's not cheap, 60, 70 bucks, something like that. And you might want to do your own research on it. You know, CDC has a lot to say.
2 places, yes, CDC, and then talk to your doctor about it.
And you can get that at the health department.
I talked to my doctor before I went the last time, and he says, whatever the CDC says. Dr. Gaston.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, that's what I did in family practice was you look it up.
Yeah.
Don't have that ready yet for you. We'll have that by next week. Other things we need to talk about? How about if we send you home?
Sounds good.
Works for me.
All of the itinerary that you've seen is confirmed and signed and done.
If you're returning books, if you'd take them into the office, check them off, and then there's some more to look at. If you got that one, that's the hardest book of the whole crew.